Before diving into this story, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe, because here, every story is a new emotion you won't want to miss. She was always there, quiet, unassuming, invisible, but it was this woman, the one no one ever noticed, who saved an entire company from collapsing into ruin. A blurry flurry of office chaos, copy machines spitting out endless sheets, bored glances exchanged in sterile hallways, coffee cups left half full on desks, and then her, fingers dancing over the keyboard at lightning speed. She pauses, a printed sheet in her hand, numbers. Something doesn't add up. She squints, her brow furrows. The silence of the office suddenly becomes deafening. Something's wrong, very wrong, and no one sees it but her. Beatrice was 42. She had spent 15 quiet years working at the same company, showing up before sunrise, making sure everything was in order before the others arrived. She never asked for praise or attention, just did her job with quiet precision. People passed her daily without looking up. They never realized that the seamless flow of their busy office days depended entirely on her unnoticed hands. She organized files no one could find, fixed tech issues before IT was even called, and listened as people aired their secrets near her desk, as if she were part of the furniture. At meetings, she was invisible. At the coffee machine, unheard. Her value was so embedded in the background that most of her coworkers didn't even bother to learn her name. One morning, 2 employees laughed as they tried to remember who she was. "Isn't it Bernice or ... something?" One joked, "She's like a plant in the lobby, always there, but kinda decorative." The other chuckled. Beatrice stood nearby, holding a stack of reports, every word sinking deep. She said nothing, just bowed her head and quietly went back to work. Her silence was not weakness, it was survival. It started like any other morning. Beatrice was finalizing the weekly expense reports when a pattern caught her eye, one that shouldn't be there. A set of transaction codes repeated across multiple departments, all tied to identical amounts. Curious, she printed the page to deliver it to the director, but something about those numbers made her pause. Her gut twisted with suspicion. She sat back at her desk and pulled up past records. Line by line, she began to compare payments from the last 6 months. The pattern appeared again, same vendors, same invoices, same amounts, different dates. It wasn't an error, it was a design. And someone was getting rich off it while the company unknowingly bled out. Beatrice whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the office hum. "This isn't right, someone's stealing." Her heart pounded as she double-checked every column. The deeper she looked, the clearer it became: falsified invoices, ghost payments, accounts that didn't match up. She wasn't imagining it. Someone was orchestrating a scheme right under everyone's nose. She took a breath and walked toward the office of Polo, the finance director. He didn't even look up when she knocked. She held the paper out, hands trembling slightly. "Sir, I found something strange in these reports," she said. "There are duplicate invoices and..." "Beatrice," Polo interrupted coldly, "it's not your job to play auditor. Go back to your desk." Her cheeks burned, but she nodded and left without another word. Undeterred, she tried again, this time with Ana Claudia, the vice president. "I think we may have a serious issue," Beatrice began softly, but Ana waved her off mid-sentence, saying she was late for a call. Beatrice stood alone in the corridor, holding the evidence that no one wanted to see. She composed an email to the CEO that night, attaching all the documents. She explained the numbers, the repetition, the proof of fraud. Her fingers trembled as she hit send, a spark of hope flickering inside her. But the next day, there was nothing. No reply. No acknowledgement, just silence. Doubt crept in. Maybe she had crossed the line. Maybe she should have stayed in her place like they all expected. The whispers in the break room, the indifference, the closed doors, it all weighed down on her. She almost deleted the files. almost gave up, but something inside her refused to let go. She stayed late that evening, alone under the cold fluorescent lights. The office was quiet, emptied of its usual bustle. Beatrice stared at the spreadsheet on her screen, her eyes stinging with fatigue. Someone has to care, she whispered to herself. Even if it's just me. That's when she heard it, a quiet voice behind her. Hey, is everything okay? She turned and saw him, the new intern, Lucas, barely out of college, eager but unnoticed like her. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to fight this alone. Beatrice handed him a file without a word. Lucas flipped through it, his brow tightening. This isn't just weird, he said. This is theft. Their eyes met, and in that silent moment, something shifted. She wasn't invisible anymore. And together, they were about to shake the foundation of that entire company. Beatrice didn't expect anyone to notice her, let alone care. But that afternoon, as she wiped her tears in the dusty archive room, Gabriel's voice broke through the silence. Donna Baya, are you okay? She looked up, startled. His eyes held no judgment, only concern. Something in her heart softened. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen. She hesitated, then slowly handed him the folder she'd been clutching. Gabriel scanned the papers with growing alarm. This is serious, he said, his voice low. This is fraud. When she nodded, he added, I've got limited access to the internal systems. If you trust me, I think I can help. Beatrice nodded, and their secret alliance was born. What followed was a dance in the shadows. They met in hallways and empty rooms, exchanging glances and information like undercover agents. Gabriel transferred files onto USBs hidden in snack wrappers. Beatrice recorded snippets of conversations from behind half-closed doors. Every late-night whisper and encrypted file brought them closer to the truth. Together, they uncovered layers of deceit. Paulo had been rerouting company funds for over 3 years, covering his tracks with fake audits and silence. The money had vanished into dummy accounts, while employees like Beatrice were denied raises for years. But for all the data they'd found, they still lacked the final blow, something undeniable. That's when Gabriel had an idea. Tomorrow, he whispered, Paulo presents the quarterly report in the main boardroom. Beatrice's eyes widened. If we add the proof to the presentation in front of the entire board? He nodded. Exactly. No way to shut it down if everyone sees it. Her heart pounded, but she stood tall. She looked at the boy who now felt like an unexpected angel. Let's do it, she said with quiet courage. They've laughed at me for years. Let them. I'm not afraid anymore. Gabriel smiled, proud. They made their plan, minute by minute. And as the sun rose on the next day, Beatrice felt something she hadn't felt in years' hope. The boardroom was cold and full of tension. Executives sat in their suits, sipping coffee, pretending to listen as Paulo spoke with his usual arrogance. Charts, numbers, and jargon filled the screen behind him. No one noticed when the door opened until Beatrice stepped in, followed closely by Gabriel. The room fell silent as she walked to the front. Her voice was steady, even as her hands trembled slightly. Excuse me, she said, locking eyes with each person at the table, but you all need to see this. She inserted the USB into the projector's port. The screen flickered, and then everything changed. Spreadsheets, wire transfers, invoices, all with Paulo's name, buried behind layers of fraud. Gasps rippled across the room. An audio file played next to a recorded conversation of Paulo laughing with a supplier about a fake contract. Then another, no one looks at these reports, relax. The room shifted, the air turned dense. Paulo's face drained of color as the eyes of the board turned toward him like daggers. The CEO stood slowly, his expression unreadable. What is this, Paulo? He asked. Paulo stuttered, sweat beading on his forehead. It's fake. They're trying to, but before he could finish, Gabriel stepped forward. All data was pulled directly from the internal server, verified, triple-checked, and we've got backups. Silence reigned for a beat, then a quiet call from the CEO. Security. 2 guards appeared at the door and walked toward Paulo, who tried to argue but was quickly escorted out. Chairs shifted. Murmurs rose. All eyes turned back to Beatrice, this time, not with dismissal or mockery, but with respect. Deep, undeniable respect. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Gabriel looked at her with quiet admiration, and Beatrice, after 15 years of invisibility, stood at the front of the room like someone who had finally remembered her worth. For the first time, she wasn't just a background figure. She was the woman who saved them all. The CEO's office was brighter than she remembered. Beatrice sat across from him, still unsure if everything had really happened. He leaned forward, his voice stripped of authority and filled with something rare sincerity. "We owe you an apology," he said. "You saved this company, Beatrice, and we finally saw you." Her eyes welled, not from sadness, but from years of holding everything in. Later that week, a company-wide announcement was made. Beatrice had been promoted to compliance coordinator, a position created just for her. She stood at the front of the same boardroom, not as a guest or a disruption, but as the new face of integrity. Gabriel stood beside her, smiling with pride, clutching the scholarship letter he'd received from the CEO himself. Their journey had changed both their lives forever. Outside the company, a press conference brought attention to the scandal. Her name was spoken into microphones, printed in headlines, whispered with admiration. Beatrice Mello, the receptionist who stopped $1 million fraud, one journalist said. She smiled softly, remembering every ignored hello and forgotten coffee. Now no one could mispronounce her name. Colleagues who once passed her by without a glance now greeted her with genuine warmth. Some apologized. Others simply nodded, acknowledging her presence with respect they should have shown years ago. Beatrice didn't hold grudges, she held wisdom. Quiet people notice everything. And when they speak, the world listens. Gabriel continued his studies with passion, often calling her Donna Baya, even in meetings, making her laugh. They formed a bond like family, forged through courage and truth. In moments of uncertainty, she'd ask his opinion, and he'd always remind her, "We're a team." They weren't just co-workers, they were proof that kindness and bravery change everything. One afternoon, Beatrice stood by the tall window in her new office. The sun spilled through, warming her face. She watched the city move below her, people rushing past one another, unaware of the quiet souls walking among them. Her fingers brushed the frame of a photo on her desk, one she'd taken with Gabriel, both smiling wide, free. She exhaled slowly, peace. The music rose gently as a narrator's voice echoed. Sometimes, the loudest voices are the ones no one hears. And in silent courage, the greatest heroes are born. Never underestimate someone just because they don't make noise. Beatrice was invisible until the day she shone like no one else. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below. Your words might inspire the next story. And hey, if you felt something real today, consider subscribing. We're building a community where stories heal, connect, and change lives. One video at a time.